bone and sickle, bleeding saints and forest witches, the past unburied, the books unsealed, the old celebration returning.
Hello, and welcome to my study. Please come in and have a seat. While the books surrounding you are those used to research our show, and the individual to my right here, along with managing domestic duties, serves as our reader for any passages that will be directly quoted from these sources. Her name is Mrs. Carswell.
Hello.
So, year 7. Our show had its birthday at the end of April.
A rainy birthday. It was sad.
It was busy.
It just doesn't seem right when it rains on birthdays, especially in spring.
Every day's someone's birthday. Should it never rain?
You know what I mean. I was going to serve cake out on the veranda.
We had cake on the veranda.
I mean during the day. You were the one wanting to eat cake at night. No one eats cake at night, not birthday cake. And on a wet table.
You wiped down the table.
Everything was wet.
It had stopped raining. You didn't need to wear a raincoat. I feel like you did that just to make a point.
The eaves were dripping, and we sat on towels. In the dark. In the night.
There is a light in the veranda. And we got to hear the frogs singing. Springtime frogs.
I'm glad the frogs were happy, but it just seemed like a bad omen.
We've just been on edge.
When you blew out the candles, it was like there was no light at all. It didn't feel right.
Like I said...
I just want the noises to stop.
I know.
You feel better because you're talking to Dr. Bartusch, but that's not helping anything now.
He's going to come out. I should explain to the listeners, it's about the noises coming from under the house. I was able to find a contact for Dr. Bartusch, who was supposed to come out with the parapsychology group. He's going to fly out and see what he can make of it. But he asked us each to first write a sort of journal of what we remember about these noises and how and when they started, a sort of history details. So he knows what he's dealing with.
We've been spending a lot of time on the veranda because it's just gotten to be too much inside.
But he is coming out, and I think we should count ourselves lucky for that. It's a 4-hour flight, but he's willing to do it. Stay overnight if necessary.
We've moved a lot of things outside, day-to-day things, and Mr. Ridenauer's put up a bunch of tarps, so it's like living in a tent. I ordered a sleeping bag. We just came inside to record this.
What I was going to say is we should be grateful that he's coming, and also grateful for the support we get from our listeners.
Thank you to our friends who listen to the show.
Sharing in our travels through tales of long ago.
Stories full of folklore.
Stories full of horror.
If you give us money, we will like you more.
And our heroes of the day are...
Hawthorne and Hemlock, Eric Leduc, and Cat Adair.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so just to move things along so Mrs. Carswell can get back outside, this would be episode 141, Rolling Hells and Land Ships.
The following is adapted from Mr. Ridenauer's new book, A Season of Madness. Fools, monsters, and marvels of the old world carnival. It's an excerpt from the chapter on German Carnival. I'll be reading the quotes from historical sources and subheads used in the chapter. pagan wagons.
Folkloric or backward-looking qualities of the German carnival have prompted some scholars to seek its origins in ancient heathen tradition. For those, a tantalizing passage in the work by Tacitus, Germania, offers a prototype for carnival parades. Certain German tribes of the 1st century, Tacitus writes,
share a common worship of Nerthus, or Mother Earth. They believe that she takes part in human affairs, riding in a chariot among her people. After that, the chariot, the vestments, and, believe it if you will, the goddess herself are cleansed in a secluded lake.
A Mother Earth, designated by the name Nerthus, is not to be found in any other texts, and no consensus has been reached as to whether that name might represent some permutation of a known deity. However, the ritual use of wagons among Germanic peoples is supported by archaeological finds, such as the ceremonial Dieberg wagons discovered in a Jutland bog in western Denmark. Unfortunately, the religious nature of the Nerthus procession has little in common with the carnival parades appearing in Germany in the 14th century. And also there's that small matter of those 13 intervening centuries. There are, however, certain accounts from the interim period that sometimes draw comparison. Written in the 6th century, Gregory of Tours in his Gloria Confessorum describes a Burgundian bishop encountering rural folk,
drawing this statue about in a cart for the prosperity of their fields and vineyards.
He relates this, erroneously or not, to another anecdote involving a long-lost statue of Berecynthia, identified with the Great Mother Cybele. It's a tantalizing pagan survival anecdote, but not easily related to other Germanic customs and particularly unrelated to carnival. Much more intriguing and certainly more carnivalesque is the anecdote related by the Flemish abbot, composer, and chronicler Rudolf of St. Tron in his Deeds of the Abbots of Tron. It describes a
diabolical trick
instigated in 1135 by an unnamed German
rustic.
He writes,
having gotten the confidence of the magistrates and help from frivolous men who delight in jokes and novelties, he constructed a ship in the nearby woods, and, having attached wheels to it, made it movable on land. He also got the authorities to allow it to be dragged by ropes over the shoulders of the weavers, from Kornelmünster to Aachen.
After dragging it for roughly 7 miles between these German cities, the weavers haul it another 25 miles over the border into the Netherlands, where it's fitted with a mast and sail, and then roughly 46 miles further into Belgium, toward St. Truden or Tron, where the abbot from the author's monastery gets word.
Hearing that the ship so unfortunately assembled was approaching our city without aid of mast or oar, with a display of such paganism, was preaching in a prophetic spirit to the people that they should avoid involvement with it, because they would be ensnared through this in the deceit of the evil spirit.
He repeatedly preaches to the citizens of St. Truden, sharing his misgivings about the idol of evil, but they pay no heed.
Instead, filled with excitement and enthusiasm, they installed this fatal Trojan horse in the middle of the city square. The weavers of the city received the invitation to come would without delay to the sacrilegious vigils before this idol.
The abbot speculates that the ship is a
dwelling, whether of Bacchus, Venus, Neptune, or Mars, I do not know, or perhaps better, of all the evil spirits, a gathering of various musicians singing filthy songs unworthy of the Christian religion. Just as evening was coming on, just as the moon was rising, a mass of women dropping all womanly modesty, hearing the racket of this merrymaking, came out with their hair let down, some half undressed, some wearing only their shifts, and broke in and shamelessly joined those leading the crowds around the ship. You might see there some, 1,000 of both sexes, singing an outrageous and shameless sea shanty until the middle of the night.
The festivities continued for more than 12 days until the town council demanded that it be removed. Planning to next haul the ship to Louvain, they are forbidden entry to the city. After this, the narrative redirects to conflicts between Louvain and its neighbors, and we sadly hear no more of this devil ship. I hardly know what to make of this incident, assuming it has some basis in fact. That it was actually some kind of pagan temple on wheels seems to me primarily the writer's pious way of explaining behavior he finds devilish. Perhaps it was an insanely involved lark on the part of the Weavers' Guild. There's no reference to Carnival in the passage, but various guilds did historically fund and produce carnival entertainment. But this was only within an organized municipal framework, not as an improvised journey of no return. In any case, it does seem like a good time.
Fastnacht and folklore.
Words used for carnival in Germany reflect different styles of celebration. The Latinate Carnival is used mostly in the western Rhineland, excluding a pocket in the southwest. East of that, the alternative is Fasching, derived from Fastnacht. Though linguists now debate this, until the 20th century, the etymology of Fastnacht was commonly derived from Fastenzeit, that is fasting time, and Nacht, eve, that is Lent Eve, the eve before the fasting begins. This is hardly the only word used in these regions, however. Local dialects insist variously on Fasnacht, Fasenacht, and especially Fasnet.
Grotesque games.
The earliest references to Fasnacht appear in a story written between 1200 and 1210, the medieval romance Parzival by Wolfram von Eschenbach. The section in which the story is found is headed, How the Women Around the Castle of the Counts of Hirschberg-Dollenstein Performed Grotesque Games. This comic episode involves Parzival's friend and fellow knight, Gawain, or Gawain as in the Green Knight, who, at the beginning of the tale, is intimately engaged with the Princess Anticonia when suddenly they are attacked by the townspeople of Schembartlauf. Fleeing to a tower, they discover an immense chessboard which Gawain employs as a shield. As they begin hurling the heavy stone chess pieces down on the angry mob, von Eschenbach comments on the Princess Anticonia's manner of fighting, saying that she
acquitted herself there like a true knight. She was seen fighting at Gawain's side with such spirit that the peddler women at Dollenstein never fought better at Fastnacht, for they do so as a frolic and exert themselves without cause.
The text seems to refer to mock battles or games engaged in by women of a certain class, peddlers or rustic vendors in the market selling goods from the country. That the activities are restricted to women reflects Carnival's spirit of inversion, with women, ironically, assuming the aggressive role in medieval society. The tradition of a carnival exclusive to women, Weiberfastnacht, persists in modern Germany. In the Rhineland, it's celebrated on the Thursday before the carnival ends. A tradition of the day involves women snipping off neckties worn by men, a custom that has not disappeared even in these more casual times when men will happily don neckties just for the occasion. The Swabian Alemannic tradition includes a Weiberfastnacht on days varying by region, And in the town square of Dornstein, the women of von Eschenbach's story are regarded as local heroes and are represented in a sculpture in the Peddler Woman fountain in the town square.
The Schembartlauf.
In the 14th century, Nuremberg played host to a dramatic explosion of carnival activity called the Schembartlauf. These costume parades were beautifully documented every year in visual catalogs, the Schembart books, 80 of which still exist in museum archives, and I'll post a few of those images on the website show notes. Those familiar with the Krampusslauf will recognize the last part of that word as meaning to run or walk. The other part of the word refers to masks worn by those taking part in the procession. Schem can be related to the modern German Schemen for silhouette or shadow or ghost. Schem compares with larva, another old German word for masks taken from the Latin larva, which also means ghost. Both German and Italian-speaking regions tend to use this Latin-style designation exclusively for carnival masks of the carved wood variety. It's been suggested that the Bart in Schembart simply carries the modern German meaning of beard, but the masks depicted are rarely bearded, so that issue remains unresolved. As with the Weavers' Guild, said to have been responsible for the mysterious wheeled ship earlier discussed, it's another guild, the Butchers' Guild of Nuremberg, that staged the first Schembart activities. This consisted of a large dance in the town square. Illustrations show several dozen dancers formed in long chains linked by rings which look like sausage. Along with the sausages, products of their trade, beef and mutton, are represented by an ox and sheep depicted on standards held by the dancers on each end of the line. Other figures of a more cryptic significance include 3 hobby horses, including a ram and a unicorn, something like a donkey holding in its mouth a goose, and a man holding an apple tree or tree of paradise. In certain illustrations, members of another guild indispensable to the butcher's art, the knife makers, parade around with sharp knives. The first of these dances, held in 1349, was supposedly staged to honor the butchers for their loyalty to the town council. During a period of riots instigated by other guilds, the butchers are supposed to have warned council members of an assassination plot. And in another version, a butcher provides refuge to a town councilor fleeing a murderous mob and is joined by fellow butchers in fighting them off. In return for their loyalty or risk to life and limbs, so the story goes, permission was granted to hold the public dance. This seems a rather onerous price to pay for the privilege of offering a public entertainment, and it's more possible that this origin story is merely a fable told to encourage a general or universal allegiance to the council. A more plausible explanation of the festival's origin involves the Lenten fast. As the meatless days approached, appreciation for the city's butchers and their products would automatically increase, as would their revenues. Wishing to show their gratitude for these seasonal profits, and as a public relations gesture, the butchers may have used the money to finance these public entertainments. Conversely, the impending loss of income over Lent might spur the guild to organize events as a form of last-minute promotion of their trade. Later accounts also mention money directly collected by the costume participants. The original dance did not showcase those masked figures that came to dominate the Schembartlauf. It was only toward the middle of the 15th century that the focus was on the runners, runners being a standard translation for Läufer, those taking part in the Lauf. Originally, the runners only provided crowd control and cleared the square for the dance. To do so, they employed fireworks, always an excellent means of dispersing a crowd. Rather than scattering these in the cobblestones, runners shot showers of sparks from handheld launchers that looked, for all the world, like impossibly large artichokes. Artichokes shooting fire, of course. Some have interpreted these objects as bundles of green leaves containing pyrotechnics, which strikes me as highly unworkable, but if anyone can explain to me how a bundle of leaves is charged with powder or pyrotechnic loads, ignited, and then recharged, I'm all ears. These puzzling artichokes at first were more prominent in the Schembartlauf books than the masks. In fact, it is easy to not at first recognize the masks as such, as they are easily mistaken for the runners' own faces. Only when one notices their expressionless uniformity do they really read as masks. Early costumes are less elaborate, usually white suits with straps of bells worn at the waist and beneath the knee. In numerous images, the runner's identity as butchers is indicated by a small meat cleaver worn on the chest, like a crucifix. As a teasing reminder of the meatless days ahead, some of the runners were also seen carrying baskets of fish or crabs and offering onlookers fistfuls of salted herring. Several books from the late 1450s show another runner wearing a money box, apparently for soliciting donations to the guild. By the mid-15th century, interest in the Schembartlauf had grown to such an extent that those outside the guild were also eager to participate. Eventually, young men from aristocratic families bought their way in and began vying to create the most impressive costumes. In Schembartlauf books, they appear masked but recognizable thanks to the family arms accompanying their image. They're often shown holding one of those artichokes and or pikes with which they apparently marched. Their white linen suits are now painted with rosettes and twining branches, diamond patterns, stripes, suns, moons, and stars, shamrocks, flames, and thistles. Alongside these are more striking figures dressed in suits encrusted with nuts or dice, fluttering with peacock plumes, or covered in shaggy layers of documents fixed with wax seals. There are also mythological beings, a hairy devil with a devil child, a bristly boar-headed monster, a bird-headed creature with female breasts. And particularly prominent are the beings from the forest, the wild men and wild women. The male is majestically bearded, wearing a mossy suit and crown and a girdle of ivy. Slung over his shoulder is an uprooted tree with a tiny human dangling from its branches to provide scale. The female is likewise mossy and girdled, but strangely wears a bonnet and maternally cradles her wild child. Humanoid forest-dwelling beings play a role in the legends of many countries, but the wild man became especially important in Germany of the 14th to 16th century. While German folklore is replete with woodsy, leafy, mossy beings, that is, Schratten, Holzleute, Moosleute, Wildleute were not regarded as beings of the fairy realm, but rather another tribe or race of humans. While his legendary strength led him to becoming a frequent emblem in German heraldry, the species is also known for those more human traits, exemplified, for instance, in the maternal way the wild woman cradles her child. In Northern Renaissance culture, the Wildleute came to be regarded as a sort of pure Edenic race. In 1513, German poet and playwright Hans Sachs composed a poem expressing precisely this view. His
Lament of the Wild People over the Faithless World
not only enumerates the evil propensities of mankind, but presents this woodland race as having once belonged to civilization, but having withdrawn to the forest to avoid mankind's corruption. Sachs was a citizen of Nuremberg at the time it hosted the Schembartlauf and was known for writing plays presented at Carnival, so we can quite easily imagine his poem presented theatrically on a stage by an actor borrowing a moss suit and beard from one of the runners. But in reality, it seems wild men weren't always exemplars of virtue. In 1469, the mayor and town council decreed,
Neither the wild men nor others shall run after people to make them give money, defrauding them or using force.
He goes on to complain about other actions of the runners, not necessarily the wild man, decrying them as
licentious, immodest, and uncivilized.
behavior including
Skits and rhymes,
using,
impolite words and gestures.
well, some of this may have occurred in taverns or other localities runners were known to visit outside official activities in the square. In one of the illustrations, we even see a runner looking up at a balcony poised to throw an egg, in a sort of German version of the egg-tossing mischief of the Venetian Carnival. And now, the best part.
The hells.
By 1457, the Schembartlauf entered its golden age with the introduction of spectacular floats pulled by the runners. The first of these came in the form of a tremendous dragon, probably augmented with pyrotechnics. The fiery special effects and fearsome imagery these tended to present led them to being referred to as hells. The examples pictured in the Schembart books include a giant shaggy devil devouring a woman while gripping a severed head, an ogre gobbling children, and a giant fool or jester devouring tiny fools in matching outfits. The towering figures were often perched atop their own castle or tower to magnify their scale. Along with pyrotechnics, they were likely enhanced with mechanically moving parts or puppetry. Costumed devils might ride on the hells, march alongside, or board them as they entered the square. Deboard and run into the crowd. Less infernal motifs documented in the books include a battle elephant saddled with a howdah firing cannons, a fountain of youth flowing with real water, windmills, towers, a cannon firing an old woman from its mouth, a float supporting trees between which acrobats leapt, and an oven into which costumed fools shoved children. I guess that's infernal. At least twice, a ship with a crew combining fools and devils was wheeled into the square. An illustration from one year shows the ship assailed by soldiers and mounted knights as the motley crew defends the ship, throwing projectiles from the crow's nest and so forth. We even see a pair of wild men getting into the action, aiding the knights armed with tree trunks. Fireworks might also figure into these sorts of battles, as all the hells were eventually burned or blown up in front of the town hall on Ash Wednesday as the theatrical finale of the season. Many of the hells served as sets for plays, which might explain the illustrations of less remarkable floats lacking spectacular dragons or cannibalistic giants, that is, those representing the Fountain of Youth, a garden house and marketplace. 1518 saw the appearance of a hell representing the legendary Venusberg, the mountain setting for the tale of the knight Tannhäuser who was seduced by Venus and kept for 7 years within her subterranean pleasure palace. A reference in one of the Schembart books lists 60 characters associated with this float who are probably performers in a massive production of the Venusberg legend staged as part of carnival festivities.
One hell too many.
In 1539, there arrived one hell too many. That year, the Schembartlauf boasted the largest participation ever, with 150 performers, and anticipation was at an all-time high as the event had been on hiatus for the past 14 years due to war and plague. There had been other turmoil, too. The Protestant Reformation, instigated by Luther in 1517, had gained followers in Nuremberg, and many in the city council were not keen on reviving old carnival customs with Catholic associations. But the populace of Nuremberg was hardly agreed on this. The hell that rolled into the city square that year was an old favorite, a ship manned by fools and devils. Among the crew, a black-gowned scholar was positioned as captain. The foolish scholar was a comic standby beloved by the people and head appeared among the fools on deck in the past, surrounded by his books, globes, and astrolabes. This scholar, however, was different. He was a theologian and of the Lutheran variety. The performer was said to have either preached a comic sermon while waving a Bible or waved a backgammon board in place of a Bible. In any case, spectators recognized him at once. He was Nuremberg's most prominent Lutheran preacher, Andreas Osiander. It was a gross miscalculation on the part of the organizers. Osiander was already a divisive figure, and Carnival already a volatile season. Over the next days, while crowds amused at the targeting of the preacher took to the streets singing popular ballads mocking him, Osiander threw about his considerable weight, scolding the city council for permitting these Catholic frivolities and demanding an end to it. When the people learned that the council was poised to forever ban their beloved Schembartlauf, they formed a menacing mob outside Osiander's house, and troops were called out to disperse them. And that was that. While carnival festivities of a sort continued in Nuremberg, nothing like the Schembartlauf was ever seen again. I hope everyone's been enjoying our show and that you might have the opportunity to leave a review if you do, particularly on Apple Podcasts, which ends up syndicated on other streamers. Some recent reviewers we'd like to kindly thank are C. Cart 616, I Am Cool V123, and John Bisco. These episodes only keep coming out because of the support of our lovely friends on Patreon. We haven't ticked off all the benefits of subscribing for quite some time, but as we've added some new ones last month, it seems time to do so. Pledge commitments begin at $1 a month and can be edited at any time. At the $2 level, you unlock the Bone and Sickle Patreon blog, where I post extra material that didn't make it into the current episode, along with videos and images related to our themes generally. Those subscribing at the $4 level and higher receive a short extra episode, a reading from something in our library here, enhanced by our usual music and effects. But I should also point out that when you join, you can immediately access the entire ever-growing back catalog of posts and bonus episodes. Other rewards include downloads of the show soundscapes heard under the narration, episode scripts, signed copies of my Krampus book, and unique and hand-packed mystery kits consisting of assorted baubles and oddities collected around the library here. Signed copies of my new book, A Season of Madness, are now also part of our just-added Carnival King reward tier. You also get access to a digital library of carnival videos related to each chapter of the book, vintage Hungarian carnival monster stamps, and your choice of a mug or shirt with images from the book, including the Party Like It's 1598 shirt featuring costume characters of the Schembartlauf. The Carnival King reward tier includes rewards from all the aforementioned tiers also. All the new Carnival items, along with a Carnival-themed Bone and Sickle shirt for 2025, are also available a la carte at the Bone and Sickle Etsy store. And for details on our Patreon rewards, please visit patreon.com/Bone and Sickle. Bone and Sickle, all one word. Our show is written and produced by me, Al Reitenauer. Mrs. Carswell is played by Sarah Chavez, the author of the 2024 children's book, We Need to Talk About Death. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening.